Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Meridian, watching the most powerful fleet in galactic history assemble before his eyes. Through the main view screen, he could see hundreds of alien warships arranging themselves in perfect formation. The sight should have been impressive, but it only made him feel uneasy. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Valkyrie flagship," said Lieutenant Ben Parker from the communications station. His voice carried a hint of annoyance that had been growing stronger over the past few hours. "Put it through," Morrison replied. Though he already knew what Admiral Corax would say, the alien's face appeared on screen, his blue skin marked with the ritual scars of his warrior caste. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he spoke in the common galactic language. "Human vessel, you will maintain your current position at the rear of the formation. Your species lacks the experience for frontline operations." Morrison kept his expression neutral. "Understood, Admiral. We're here to observe and learn." Corax's mandibles clicked in. What Morrison had learned was the Valkyrie equivalent of dismissive laughter. "Indeed. Perhaps you will witness how real military powers handle unknown threats." The transmission ended without ceremony. Commander Lisa Hayes turned from her tactical station, her jaw tight with controlled anger. "I'm getting really tired of being treated like children, Captain." "Easy, Lisa," Morrison said quietly. "Let them think what they want to think." Hayes nodded, but her frustration was clear. She had served in Earth's military for 15 years and commanded respect wherever she went. Being dismissed as primitive by aliens who had only achieved spaceflight a few centuries before humans did not sit well with her. The Meridian was officially a diplomatic vessel, equipped with standard defensive systems and a small crew of 50. To the alien coalition forces, it represented humanity's best effort at military technology. They were wrong about that, but Morrison wasn't about to correct them. "Ben, what's the latest count on their fleet strength?" Morrison asked. Parker consulted. "His readings, 847 vessels, sir. 12 different species represented. The Zanari brought their newest battlecruisers. The Krothok have their entire 3rd battle fleet here, and the Ethereal Collective sent their ancient dreadnoughts." Morrison whistled softly. The combined firepower floating in space around them could reduce entire solar systems to dust. The alien races had put aside centuries of rivalry and mistrust to assemble this force. Whatever they expected to find in the Zarian sector, they were taking no chances. "Any word on what exactly we're supposed to be investigating?" Hayes asked. "The official reports mention unusual energy readings detected 3 days ago," Morrison replied. "Something appeared on long-range sensors and then vanished. The readings didn't match any known technology in the galactic database." Hayes frowned. "That's not much to go on for assembling this kind of force." "No, it isn't," Morrison agreed. He had read the classified briefings that the aliens hadn't shared with humanity. The energy signatures had been massive, indicating a vessel larger than anything currently in service. More concerning was the fact that the readings suggested technology far beyond what any known species possessed. The bridge fell quiet as the crew continued their duties. Morrison walked to the observation deck, a small area behind the main bridge where he could think without interruption. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he watched the alien fleet complete its formations. The Valkyrie ships formed the center of the fleet, their hulls gleaming silver and bristling with weapon arrays. Admiral Corax commanded from the flagship Eternal Glory, a massive dreadnought that served as the Coalition's mobile command center. The Zanari vessels took position on the flanks, their energy shields shimmering with barely contained power. These were the most technologically advanced ships in the known galaxy, capable of manipulating matter at the quantum level. The Krothok battleships formed the outer perimeter, their dark hulls scarred from countless battles. The warrior race had never met a conflict they wouldn't join, and their ships reflected their aggressive nature. Heavy armor plating covered weapons systems, designed for close-range destruction. Between them moved smaller vessels from the other coalition species. The ethereal collective's ancient ships seemed to flow through space rather than fly, their organic curves a stark contrast to the angular military vessels around them. The hegemony's cube-shaped cruisers maintained perfect geometric spacing, their artificial intelligence systems calculating optimal firing solutions for every possible scenario. Morrison had studied all of these species during his years at the Diplomatic Academy. Each had their strengths and weaknesses, their particular technologies and tactical preferences. Together, they represented the pinnacle of galactic military might. Any single one of their fleets could have conquered Earth's entire defense force without breaking stride. "Captain," Parker's voice came through the comm system. "We're getting movement on the outer sensor grid. Something's coming through hyperspace." Morrison returned to the bridge quickly. "What do we have?" "Single contact, bearing 27 Mark IV. It's big, sir." "Really big." Hayes looked up from her console, her face pale. "Captain, the energy signature is off the charts." "Whatever this thing is, it's putting out more power than half the coalition fleet combined. Are you sure those readings are accurate?" Morrison asked. "I've run the scan 3 times. The computers keep giving me the same result." Across the fleet, alarm signals began sounding as other ships detected the approaching vessel. Admiral Corex's face appeared on screens throughout the coalition, his 4 eyes wide with concern. "All vessels, this is Admiral Corex. Unknown contact approaching from hyperspace. Battle stations, condition red." "Repeat, all ships to battle stations." The response was immediate and impressive. 847 warships pivoted toward the hyperspace exit point, their weapons powering up in sequence. The combined energy output created a visible distortion in space itself. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine as he watched the display. The unknown vessel was still in hyperspace, but something about the sensor readings bothered him. The energy patterns looked almost familiar, though he couldn't place where he might have seen them before. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Valkyrie flagship," Parker announced. On screen, Admiral Corex appeared, his warrior's composure cracking slightly. "Human Captain Morrison, your vessel will retreat to minimum safe distance immediately." "This is not a request." "Admiral, we're already at the rear of the formation. How much further back do you want us?" "At least 50,000 kilometers. If this unknown vessel proves hostile, your primitive shields will not protect you from the crossfire." Morrison wanted to argue, but Hayes caught his eye and shook her head slightly. She was right. Drawing attention to themselves now would only cause problems later. "Understood, Admiral. We're pulling back now." As the Meridian withdrew from the main fleet, Morrison watched the alien vessels complete their battle formations. They had arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the hyperspace exit point, with overlapping fields of fire that could destroy anything that emerged. "Contact emerging from hyperspace," Hayes announced. "Visual contact in 3.2.1 Mark." The unknown vessel materialized in normal space, and Morrison felt his blood turn to ice. The ship was unlike anything in the galactic database. Its hull, a dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The design was sleek and predatory, with weapon ports that lined its surface like the scales of some massive serpent. But it was the energy signature that made Morrison's hands shake as he gripped the command chair. He had seen those readings before, in classified files that officially didn't exist. Files that contained humanity's deepest secrets. "Ben, are you picking up any transmissions from that vessel?" Morrison asked, his voice carefully controlled. "Negative. Sir, it's completely silent." Morrison nodded, but inside his mind was racing. The unknown ship hung in space, dwarfed by the massive alien fleet surrounding it, but somehow managing to look more dangerous than all of them combined. "Admiral," Corex's voice echoed across all coalition frequencies as he began standard first contact. Protocols. Morrison barely heard the words. He was too busy staring at the dark vessel and wondering if Protocol 7 was about to be activated. If it was, the galaxy was about to change forever. The unknown vessel hung motionless in space, its dark hull reflecting nothing of the light from nearby stars. Captain Jake Morrison stared at it through the viewscreen, his mind working furiously to piece together what he was seeing. The ship was beautiful in a deadly way, like a blade forged by master craftsmen who understood that form and function were the same thing. "Captain, Admiral Corex is broadcasting first contact protocols," Lieutenant Ben Parker reported from his station. "Standard greeting sequences in over 300 languages." Morrison nodded but didn't take his eyes off the mysterious ship. Something about its design bothered him. The curves of the hull, the placement of what looked like weapon ports, even the way it oriented itself in space. It all felt familiar, like a half-remembered dream. Commander Lisa Hayes looked up from her tactical console, her face troubled. "Sir, I'm reading some very strange energy patterns from that vessel. The power output is incredible, but it's not following any known configuration." "What do you mean?" Morrison asked. "Well, most ships generate power in steady patterns. Fusion. Reactors have a particular signature, antimatter systems have another. This thing is putting out energy in waves that don't match anything in our database." Morrison felt the chill in his spine grow colder. "Keep monitoring those readings, Lisa, and make sure everything is being recorded." Across the fleet, 847 warships maintained their positions around the unknown vessel. The alien commanders had created a perfect sphere of destruction, with overlapping weapon ranges that could vaporize anything that tried to escape. It was an impressive display of military coordination. Admiral Corex's voice echoed across all communication channels as he continued his attempts at contact. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Galactic Coalition space. Identify yourself and state your intentions." "This is Admiral Corex of the Velthari Empire, commanding the Joint Coalition Fleet." The mysterious ship remained silent. "Ben, are you picking up any response at all?" Morrison asked. "Nothing on standard frequencies, sir, but wait. Parker's eyes widened as he adjusted his controls. "There's something on a very narrow band transmission. It's encoded, but the computer is trying to break it down." Morrison watched as Parker worked at his station, running the signal through the meridians. "Translation systems." The young officer's face grew more confused with each passing second. "Sir, this is very strange. The signal is being broadcast on a frequency that our systems can decode, but the alien ships can't seem to pick it up at all." "What does it say?" Parker looked up, his face pale. "It says, human vessel on this meridian, you are advised to withdraw to minimum safe distance. Protocol 7 is now in effect." Morrison felt the blood drain from his face. Protocol 7 was a classified military directive that officially didn't exist. He had learned about it during his years in Earth's Deep Space Reconnaissance program, before he transferred to diplomatic service. Only a handful of people in the entire human military knew what Protocol 7 meant. It meant that Earth's Shadow Fleet was about to reveal itself. "Captain?" Hayes was looking at him with concern. "Are you all right?" Morrison forced himself to remain calm. "Ben, respond to that transmission. Tell them we understand and are complying." "Sir, should I ask them who they are?" "No, just acknowledge the message." Parker sent the response while Hayes continued monitoring the tactical situation. The alien fleet was growing restless, their commanders exchanging rapid communications as the unknown vessel continued to ignore their demands. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Corex's face appeared on the main screen, his 4 eyes blazing with anger. "Your vessel will withdraw immediately to a distance of 100,000 kilometers. Admiral, we're already at the rear of your formation. Why do you want us to pull back further?" Because this situation is about to become extremely dangerous, and your primitive technology cannot protect you from what may happen next. Morrison wanted to argue, but the message from the unknown ship had changed everything. If Protocol 7 was active, then the safest place for the Meridian was as far away as possible. Understood, Admiral. We're withdrawing now. As the Meridian pulled back from the main fleet, Morrison called Hayes to his ready room, the small chamber adjacent to. The bridge was cramped but private. Lisa, I need you to start emergency recording protocols immediately. Everything that happens from this point forward needs to be documented. Hayes frowned. Captain, what's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. Morrison considered how much he could tell her. Hayes was a good officer with top-secret clearance. But Protocol 7 was beyond top secret. It was buried so deep in classified files that most admirals didn't know it existed. I can't give you all the details, but that ship out there might not be as unknown as everyone thinks. What do you mean? Just start the recordings, Lisa, and make sure they're stored in multiple backup systems. I have a feeling that what's about to happen will change everything. Hayes nodded and returned to the bridge. Morrison followed a moment later, taking his position in the command chair as the Meridian reached its new position far behind the alien fleet. On the main screen, the mysterious vessel remained motionless while Admiral Corex continued his attempts at communication. The alien commander's patience was clearly running out. Unknown vessel, this is your final warning. You will respond to our hails and submit to inspection, or we will consider you a hostile threat and act accordingly. The response came not in words, but in action. The dark ship's hull began to shift and change. Sections that had appeared to be smooth armor plating retracted to reveal weapon systems unlike anything in the galactic database. The vessel's entire surface seemed to come alive as targeting arrays emerged from hidden compartments. My God! Hayes whispered from her station. Captain, the energy readings just went off the scale. That thing is powering up weapons that I didn't even know existed. Morrison gripped his command chair as he watched the transformation. The mysterious ship was revealing its true nature, and it was terrifying in its efficiency. Every weapon port that emerged was perfectly positioned for maximum tactical advantage. Every system that came online was integrated seamlessly with the others. Ben, are you receiving any more transmissions? Yes, sir. Another narrow band message. It says, all coalition vessels, you have 30 seconds to withdraw, or you will be considered hostile. This is your only warning. Morrison felt his heart racing. Patch me through to Admiral Corex immediately. I can't, sir. The alien ships aren't receiving the same transmission we are. As far as they know, that vessel is still completely silent. The tactical situation was becoming clear to Morrison. The unknown ship was giving the aliens a chance to retreat, but they couldn't hear the warning. They would interpret any hostile action as an unprovoked attack. Admiral Corex's voice boomed across the fleet communications. All vessels, the unknown ship is powering weapon systems. This is now considered a hostile contact. All ships, prepare to fire on my command. Morrison watched in horror as 847 alien warships prepared to attack a vessel that had just tried to warn them away. The irony was terrible. The aliens thought they were defending themselves against an aggressor, but they were actually about to start a war with an enemy they couldn't possibly defeat. Captain, Hayes called out, her voice tight with tension. The unknown vessel is moving. On the screen, the dark ship began to turn slowly, bringing its weapon arrays to bear on the alien fleet. Its movements were fluid and graceful, like a predator preparing to strike. There was something almost artistic about the way it positioned itself for optimal firing angles. Admiral Corex raised his hand on the command deck of his flagship. All vessels, fire on my mark. 3.2.1. The mysterious ship fired first. The first shot from the mysterious vessel was like watching lightning strike in slow motion. A brilliant beam of pure energy lanced out from the dark ship's forward array, cutting through space with deadly precision. It struck the lead Zanari battlecruiser directly in the center of its hull, and the most advanced shields in the galaxy collapsed like paper in a fire. Captain Jake Morrison watched in stunned silence as the Zanari ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a kilometer-long masterpiece of alien engineering. The next moment there was nothing but expanding gas and debris. "Recording everything, sir," Commander Lisa Hayes said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her hands flew across her tactical console as she tried to make sense of what the sensors were telling her. "Admiral," Corex's voice roared across the fleet communications, his four eyes wide with shock and rage. "All vessels, engage the hostile immediately. Full weapons, maximum power." 846 alien warships opened fire simultaneously. The space around the mysterious vessel filled with energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and quantum missiles. The combined firepower was enough to crack a planet's surface, a display of destruction that had never been seen in galactic history. The dark ship moved. Morrison had never seen anything like it. The vessel twisted through space with impossible grace, avoiding weapons fire that should have been unavoidable. Its hull seemed to bend the laws of physics, performing maneuvers that would have torn apart any known ship. "Captain, those movement patterns don't make sense," Hayes reported, her voice filled with professional disbelief. "The G-forces alone should have liquefied anything organic inside that hull." "Maybe there's nothing organic in there, Lieutenant," Ben Parker suggested from his communication station. Morrison shook his head. "No, there's something alive on that ship. Look at the way it moves. Those aren't computer calculations. That's intuition and experience." The mysterious vessel completed its evasive spiral and began its counterattack. What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. Though few would believe the records were accurate, the ship's weapon systems fired in perfect sequence. Each shot was precisely calculated for maximum tactical advantage. There was no wasted energy, no random firing. Every beam found its target with surgical precision. The Zanari Vanguard formation died first. 12 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas in less than 30 seconds. Their quantum shields, which had been considered impenetrable, offered no more protection than empty space. "Minute 1, Hayes announced, her voice mechanical as she tried to process what she was witnessing. The Krothic battle line was next. The warrior race's heavily armored dreadnoughts had survived conflicts that destroyed entire star systems. Their thick hull plating was designed to absorb punishment that would vaporize lesser vessels. The mysterious ship's weapons carved through their armor like it was made of cloth. Morrison watched as the Krothic flagship, a massive vessel called the Blood Honor, tried to ram the unknown ship. It was a desperate move, born of centuries of warrior tradition that said death in battle was preferable to defeat. The dark ship simply moved aside and put 3 perfectly placed shots into the Blood Honor's reactor core. The explosion lit up space for millions of kilometers. "The weapon signatures don't match anything in our database," Hayes reported. "Whatever they're using, it's not based on any known technology." Morrison felt sick as he watched the slaughter continue. These weren't random aliens being destroyed. These were beings with families, cultures, histories spanning millennia. The Krothic captain who had just died probably had children waiting for him to return home. But there was something else bothering him about the battle. The mysterious ship was fighting with restraint. Its movements were controlled, its weapons fire precise. This wasn't the action of a vessel trying to cause maximum destruction. This was surgical removal of military targets. "Minute 2, Hayes announced. The remaining fleet commanders were trying to coordinate their retreat, but the dark ship had already calculated their escape vectors. It moved to intercept fleeing vessels with mechanical efficiency, cutting off Their routes to hyperspace, Admiral Corax's flagship, the Eternal Glory, led a desperate charge directly at the unknown vessel. The Valkyrie commander was screaming orders across all frequencies, trying to rally his remaining ships for one final assault. "All vessels, concentrate fire on Grid 7 Alpha," Corax commanded. "We'll punch through whatever shields it has and ram that thing into oblivion." 200 alien warships turned their weapons on a single point in space, trying to overwhelm the mysterious vessel through sheer firepower. The energy discharge was visible from light years away. The dark ship absorbed the entire barrage without even slowing down. Morrison realized what he was looking at. "Lisa, those aren't shields protecting that ship." "What do you mean, Captain?" "Look at the energy patterns. The weapon's fire isn't being deflected or absorbed. It's being redirected somehow. That ship is using the aliens' own firepower against them." As if to prove his point, the mysterious vessel's hull began to glow with captured energy. A moment later, it released all that stored power in a single devastating pulse that swept across the battlefield like a tidal wave. 50 alien ships died instantly. The others were left drifting, their systems overloaded by the electromagnetic burst. Minute 3. Hayes whispered. The Eternal Glory was still functional, its heavy construction allowing it to survive the energy pulse. Admiral Corax appeared on Morrison's screen, his proud features twisted with desperation and rage. "Human vessel," Corax said, his voice breaking. "Can you identify this attacker? Your databases might contain information we lack." Morrison felt the weight of terrible knowledge pressing down on him. He knew exactly what that ship was, but he couldn't tell the alien commander. Protocol 7 demanded absolute secrecy, even in the face of this massacre. "I'm sorry, Admiral. We have no information about this vessel." Corax's 4 eyes blazed with fury and disappointment. "Then we die unknown, killed by an enemy we cannot comprehend." The Eternal Glory made its final attack run, charging directly at the mysterious vessel with all weapons firing. The Valkyrie flagship was a beautiful ship, its silver hull gleaming even as energy beams tore chunks from its armor. It lasted exactly 17 seconds. The dark ship's main weapons fired once, punching through the Eternal Glory's hull and detonating its power core. Admiral Corax died without knowing that he had been killed by the very species he had dismissed as primitive. "Minute 4, Hayes announced, her voice hollow. The last few alien vessels were trying to flee in different directions, hoping that scattering would allow some of them to escape. It was a reasonable tactical decision that might have worked against any conventional enemy. The mysterious ship launched a spread of projectiles that Morrison's sensors couldn't properly identify. They moved faster than anything he had ever seen, overtaking the fleeing ships and detonating with precise timing. The final vessel to die was a small scout ship from the Ethereal Collective. Its ancient organic hull tried to shift into a higher dimension to escape, a defensive ability that had protected the species for millions of years. The dark ship's weapons followed it into hyperspace and destroyed it there. Minute 4:12 seconds, Hayes reported. All alien vessels destroyed or disabled. Total enemy casualties, 847 ships, approximately 2 million personnel. Morrison stared at the viewscreen, watching debris clouds expand where the galaxy's mightiest fleet had been moments before. In just over 4 minutes, a single unknown vessel had accomplished what should have been impossible. The mysterious ship turned toward the meridian, its weapon ports still glowing with residual energy. Morrison held his breath, wondering if they would be the next target. Instead, a new transmission came through on the narrow band frequency that only they could receive. UN's Meridian. This is Captain Alex Turner of the UN's Reaper. Permission to come alongside for a conference, sir. Morrison closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The galaxy's greatest military secret had just revealed itself, and nothing would ever be the same again. Permission granted, Captain Turner. We need to talk. The UN's Reaper moved alongside the Meridian with fluid grace, its dark hull reflecting the distant stars. Captain Jake Morrison watched through the viewscreen as the mysterious warship positioned itself less than a kilometer away. Up close, the vessel was even more impressive and terrifying than he had imagined. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from that ship," Commander Lisa Hayes reported from her tactical station. "The power core alone is putting out more energy than our entire home fleet combined." Morrison nodded but kept his eyes on the Reaper. The ship's hull was covered with weapon systems that had no equivalent in any database. Some of the arrays were still glowing with residual heat from the battle, casting an eerie red light across the debris field that had once been the galaxy's mightiest fleet. "Sir, incoming transmission from Captain Turner," Lieutenant Ben Parker announced. "Put him through." The face that appeared on the main screen was unmistakably human, but there was something different about Captain Alex Turner. His eyes held a hardness that spoke of years spent preparing for this moment. He was perhaps 40 years old, with graying hair and the bearing of a professional soldier. "Captain Morrison, I apologize for the dramatic circumstances of our meeting. I understand this must be quite a shock." Morrison found his voice after a moment. "Captain Turner, I think you owe me some explanations. Starting with how a human warship managed to destroy an entire galactic fleet in 4 minutes. Turner's expression remained serious. "I'll answer all your questions, Jake. May I call you Jake? We're going to be working together from now on, so we might as well drop the formalities. Working together? Captain, I don't even know who you really are or what organization you represent." "I represent the same government you do, Jake. The same Earth. The same humanity. The difference is that I work for a division that officially doesn't exist." Hayes looked up from her console, her face troubled. "Captain, I'm detecting at least 12 more ships approaching our position. They're coming out of hyperspace in coordinated jumps." Morrison felt his stomach drop. "More aliens?" "No, sir," Hayes said, her voice filled with amazement. "They're human vessels. All of them." On the view screen, 12 more ships materialized from hyperspace jumps. Each vessel was sleek and deadly, bearing the same dark hull design as the Reaper. They arranged themselves in a perfect defensive formation around the two diplomatic ships. Turner smiled for the first time since the conversation began. "My escort squadron. I thought it would be wise to bring backup, considering what we just did." "What we just did?" Morrison's voice rose. "Captain, you just started a war with every major power in the galaxy." "No, Jake. I just ended one before it could begin." Morrison stared at Turner, trying to process what he was hearing. "What are you talking about?" Turner's expression grew serious again. "Tell me, Jake, what do you think would have happened if that alien fleet had found a weak, defenseless human colony instead of us? They were here to investigate unknown energy signatures, not attack human settlements. Were they?" Turner leaned forward in his chair. "Jake, let me share some information that your diplomatic briefings didn't include. 3 weeks ago, the Valkyrie Empire submitted a formal proposal to the Galactic Council, calling for the immediate subjugation of humanity. They argued that our rapid technological advancement made us a potential threat that needed to be controlled." Morrison felt the blood drain from his face. "That's impossible. The Valkyrie have been our strongest allies in the galactic community. Publicly, yes. Privately, they've been lobbying every major power to support military action against Earth. The Zanari agreed to provide technological support. The Krothak offered to serve as the primary invasion force. Even the peaceful ethereal collective voted in favor of the proposal." Hayes looked up from her station, her face pale. "Captain Morrison, I'm detecting communication signals from the debris field. Some of the alien ships had survivors, and they're transmitting on emergency frequencies." Turner nodded. "Let them broadcast. The galaxy needs to hear what happened here today." Morrison struggled to understand the implications of what Turner was telling him. Even if what you're saying is true, there had to be a better way to handle this than mass destruction. Really? Turner's voice hardened. How would you have handled 800 alien warships arriving in Earth's solar system with orders to force humanity into submission? Would you have tried to negotiate while they bombarded our cities? But they didn't attack Earth. They were investigating energy signatures in the Zarian sector. Turner smiled grimly. Those energy signatures were us, Jake. We've been testing our new propulsion systems in deep space for months. The aliens detected our activities and assembled this fleet to investigate. When they found us, they would have demanded that we surrender our technology and submit to galactic oversight. Morrison felt the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. So you decided to demonstrate that we don't need their oversight. I decided to show them that humanity is not the weak, primitive species they thought we were. Hayes interrupted their conversation. Captains, I'm reading massive energy buildups from the Reaper's escort ships. Are they preparing to fire? Turner shook his head. No, Commander Hayes. They're charging their hyperspace drives. We'll be leaving soon, but first I need to finish explaining the situation to Captain Morrison. Morrison leaned back in his command chair, trying to process everything he was hearing. How long has Earth been building ships like the Reaper? 10 years, Turner replied. Ever since our intelligence services determined that the major galactic powers viewed humanity as a potential threat to be eliminated. We've been reverse engineering alien technology and improving on it in ways they never imagined. Improving on it how? Turner's eyes gleamed with professional pride. Human innovation, Jake. We took their fusion reactors and figured out how to contain antimatter reactions safely. We studied their shield technology and developed armor that redirects energy instead of just absorbing it. We analyzed their weapons and created systems that use quantum mechanics to bypass conventional defenses. Morrison thought about the battle he had just witnessed. The Reaper was operating at full power during the engagement. Turner laughed, but there was no humor in it. Full power? Jake, we were running at about 30% capacity. Protocol 7 requires surgical precision, not total destruction. We needed to neutralize the threat while leaving witnesses to carry the message. Hayes looked up from her console, her voice filled with awe and terror. 30%? That ship destroyed the entire galactic fleet at 30% power? The Reaper is just the prototype, Turner explained. We have 12 production vessels. Completed, with 30 more under construction in hidden shipyards throughout the outer solar system. Morrison felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was learning. Why wasn't I told about any of this? I'm a decorated officer with top secret clearance. Because your job was to make humanity look weak and harmless, Turner said gently. Every diplomatic mission, every cultural exchange, every trade negotiation was designed to reinforce the impression that we were a primitive species that posed no threat to anyone. While you were building a fleet that could conquer the galaxy. While we were building a fleet that could defend humanity when the galaxy tried to conquer us. The communication system crackled to life as emergency signals from the alien survivors reached the 2 human ships. Morrison could hear voices speaking in dozens of different languages, all asking the same desperate questions. Who were these humans? How was this possible? What did they want? Turner stood up from his command chair. Jake, in about 6 hours, every government in the galaxy is going to know what happened here today. They're going to demand explanations from Earth's leadership. Some will want to negotiate. Others will want revenge. What do you want me to do? Return to Earth immediately. Tell them that the age of humanity hiding in the shadows is over. Tell them that Captain Alex Turner sends his regards, and that the galaxy's new protectors are ready to assume their responsibilities. Morrison stared at Turner through the view screen. Protectors? Turner's expression grew distant. There are things moving in the dark spaces between galaxies. Jake, ancient threats that the current galactic powers couldn't handle even if they worked together. Humanity didn't just build these ships to defend ourselves. We built them to defend everyone. The Reaper's engines began to glow as the ship prepared to depart. Turner's image started to fade as he ended the transmission. "Wait," Morrison called out. "Where are you going?" Turner's voice echoed across the communication channel as his ship turned toward deep space. "To the outer rim. Jake, someone needs to make sure the galaxy's real enemies don't mistake what happened here today for weakness." The Reaper and its escort squadron vanished into hyperspace, leaving Morrison alone with the debris of 800 alien warships and the knowledge that humanity's place in the galaxy had just changed forever. 3 weeks after the battle in the Zarian sector, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest orbital station, watching the most remarkable sight in human history. Dozens of alien vessels approached Earth, but these were not warships. They were diplomatic transports carrying ambassadors from every major power in the galaxy. The difference in their approach was striking. 3 weeks ago, alien ships had arrived at human space with arrogance and dismissive superiority. Now they came with respectful formation patterns and formal requests for permission to enter Earth's solar system. "Captain Morrison, President Carter wants to see you in the main conference room," Commander Lisa Hayes said as she joined him at the viewing window. She wore a new uniform with insignia that reflected her recent promotion to Admiral of the Diplomatic Fleet. Morrison nodded, but continued watching the alien ships. "It's hard to believe how much has changed, Lisa. A month ago, we were the galaxy's newest and least important species. Now they're treating us like we rule the entire universe." "Maybe we do," Hayes replied quietly. "After what happened in the Zarian sector, every government in the galaxy knows that humanity could destroy them all if we wanted to." They walked together through the corridors of the space station toward the conference room. The hallways were filled with human personnel, wearing uniforms that Morrison had never seen before. Earth's secret military divisions were no longer secret, and the integration of regular forces with the Shadow Fleet was happening faster than anyone had expected. President Helen Carter was waiting in the conference room, along with several military leaders that Morrison recognized from classified briefings. The president was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been in office for 2 years, but only now was she dealing with humanity's true place in galactic politics. "Captain Morrison, please sit down," President Carter said. "I want to hear your first-hand account of what happened out there." Morrison took his seat at the large conference table and began his report. He described the alien fleet's arrogant dismissal of humanity, the mysterious appearance of the Reaper, and the devastating 4-minute battle that followed. When he finished, the room was silent for several long moments. "Captain Turner's actions have changed everything," President Carter said finally. "The question now is how we handle what comes next." Admiral Robert Blake, the head of Earth's Conventional Navy, leaned forward in his chair. "Madam President, the alien ambassadors are demanding explanations. They want to know how many ships we have, where they're based, and what our intentions are. What have you told them?" "Nothing. We're following your orders to remain silent until this meeting was complete." President Carter turned to Morrison. "Captain, you spent more time with Turner than anyone else. What's your assessment of his intentions?" Morrison chose his words carefully. "Madam President, Captain Turner believes that humanity needs to assume a leadership role in galactic affairs. He thinks the current powers are too weak to handle the real threats that exist beyond our borders." "What real threats?" Admiral Blake asked. "I'm not certain, sir. Turner mentioned ancient enemies in the dark spaces between galaxies, but he didn't provide details." A new voice spoke from the back of the room. "I can provide those details." Everyone turned to see a man in a black uniform that bore no insignia or identification. He was tall and lean, with the bearing of someone accustomed to command. Morrison recognized him immediately. "Captain Turner, President Carter said. "We weren't expecting you." Turner walked to the front of the room, his expression serious. "Madam President, the Outer Rim situation has become critical. I needed to return to Earth to brief you personally." "What situation?" Admiral Blake demanded. Turner activated a holographic display that showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red markers appeared along the outer edge, pulsing with an ominous glow. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected massive energy signatures moving toward inhabited systems, Turner explained. The signatures match records from archaeological sites on dead worlds throughout the galaxy. President Carter studied the display. Archaeological sites? Worlds that were destroyed millions of years ago by an unknown force. The current galactic civilizations evolved long after these destructions, so they have no memory of what caused them, but the evidence is clear. Something wiped out the galaxy's previous inhabitants, and now it's returning. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. "How do you know this?" Turner's expression grew grim. "Because our ships have made contact with the advanced scouts. The entities that destroyed the ancient civilizations are called the Devourers. They consume entire star systems, converting matter into energy for their massive fleet." Admiral Blake stared at the holographic display. "How many ships are we talking about?" "Our estimates suggest at least 10,000 vessels, each one larger than anything the current galactic powers have ever built. They're moving slowly but steadily toward the populated core systems." President Carter stood up and walked to the display. "How long before they reach inhabited worlds?" "Approximately 6 months, assuming they maintain their current speed." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Morrison understood now why Turner had been so aggressive in demonstrating humanity's power. The galaxy needed a strong leader to coordinate its defense, and the traditional powers had proven they were too weak and divided to handle such a massive threat. "Captain Turner," President Carter said, "what do you recommend?" "We need to reveal the full extent of our capabilities to the galactic community immediately. The current ambassadors think the Reaper was our only advanced ship. They need to understand that we have an entire fleet capable of fighting the Devourers." Admiral Blake frowned. "That could cause panic throughout the galaxy." "Panic is better than extinction," Turner replied. "The Devourers won't negotiate or show mercy. They view all organic life as resources to be consumed. The only way to stop them is through overwhelming military force." President Carter returned to her seat and was quiet for several minutes. Finally, she looked up at Turner. "How many ships do we actually have?" 43 vessels of the Reaper class are operational, with 60 more under construction. We also have support ships, mobile shipyards, and defensive platforms that the aliens know nothing about. Morrison did quick calculations in his head. If the Reaper could destroy 800 alien ships while operating at 30% power, then a fleet of 43 similar vessels could theoretically handle thousands of enemy ships. "Madam President," Morrison said, "I recommend that we accept the role Captain Turner is suggesting. The galaxy needs leadership, and we're apparently the only ones capable of providing it." President Carter nodded slowly. "Very well. Captain Turner, I'm authorizing you to reveal our full fleet capabilities to the alien ambassadors. Captain Morrison, you'll serve as our primary diplomatic liaison with the galactic governments." Turner smiled for the first time since entering the room. "Thank you, Madam President. I'll begin preparing the demonstration immediately." 2 hours later, Morrison stood on the observation deck again, but this time he wasn't alone. Alien ambassadors from 12 different species stood beside him, their faces showing mixtures of awe and terror as 43 human warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. The ships moved with deadly grace, their dark hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun. Each vessel was a masterpiece of human engineering, combining alien technology with innovations that no other species had achieved. Ambassador Vex of the Zanari Consortium turned to Morrison, his face pale. "Captain, how long has your species possessed such capabilities?" Morrison looked out at the fleet that would soon depart to defend the galaxy against an ancient enemy. "Long enough, Ambassador. The question now is whether your people are ready to follow humanity's lead in the war that's coming." The alien ambassador nodded slowly. "After what we witnessed in the Zarian sector, I believe our governments will agree to any terms you propose." Morrison watched as the human fleet began forming up for departure to the Outer Rim. Captain Turner's ship, the Reaper, took point position. As the flotilla prepared to jump to hyperspace, the galaxy had spent millennia believing that they were the dominant powers in the universe. In the space of 3 weeks, they had learned that humanity was stronger than all of them combined. Now they would discover whether that strength was enough to protect them from the darkness that approached from beyond the star's dot as the human fleet vanished into hyperspace. Morrison realized that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. They were no longer the galaxy's newest members. They were its protectors, and the universe would never be the same.